Information discussed in this podcast may be sensitive in nature to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. David Earl Robinson was disabled in 2010 at age 38 years old. He had had a stroke previously, and this left him paralyzed on his right side. In addition, David had surgery on his brain and also had jaw surgery, leaving his jaw wired. His right hand was left in almost a fully closed fist position, and his right foot is clubbed. Dave, even though disabled, was able to get around perfectly fine on his own and even able to drive. Just after the holidays in 2009, Dave's aunt passed away. On January 3rd, 2010, Dave was visiting his mother until around 9 p.m. They were discussing the funeral for his aunt. He then left to go visit his cousin for a bit, telling his mom he'd be back and he'd see her later. But Dave never returned. Dave also couldn't be located, sparking a search around the area for both Dave and his vehicle. After a while, Dave's car was found near Dearborn, Michigan, but the man driving it wasn't Dave. Where is Dave Earl Robinson? Hello, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Where Are They podcast, and a baffling story out of the Detroit, Michigan area. Dave's story is truly mysterious to me, and there are some very interesting things that have been brought up in his case in recent years, which actually might bring us some answers, but also adds even more questions. There isn't a lot known about Dave or Dave's disappearance, or even the search for Dave. But let's take a look at what we do know. In 2010, Dave Earl Robinson lived in the Detroit, Michigan area. He had some handicaps, as we'd mentioned, which seemed mostly to stem from a stroke he had suffered when he was 27 years old. The stroke left Dave paralyzed on the right side of his body. He had also had a brain surgery, which left a permanent scar across his head, and Dave's right hand was also left in a permanently clenched fist position. At some point, Dave also had jaw surgery to repair a broken jaw. All of this will be pertinent later on. Despite some of these setbacks, at such a young age too, we know that Dave still continued in life independently. He still drove, and in 2010, he was driving a 1998 Mercury Grand Marquis, blue in color. Unfortunately, I don't know much about who Dave was as a person in 2010. I can't tell you his hobbies, how he treated people, if he was funny or if he was serious. I just don't know. On January 3rd, 2010, Dave drove over to his mother's house. The intent was for him and his family to discuss the arrangements for his upcoming aunt's funeral. Around 9 o'clock p.m., Dave left his mother's house and headed to his cousin's. He left in his 1998 Mercury Grand Marquis. His mom did expect him back to her place in a little bit. I do believe Dave made it to his cousin's, as there is a very brief note of it in one of his missing person files. Other than that, it's never really mentioned. He allegedly stayed there a little bit before heading back out, and it was believed that he was going to drive back over to his mother's place. It's never mentioned how close in proximity the two places are, but Dave never arrived back at his mother's house. He didn't have a cell phone to track, and no one could find him anywhere. His car was also now unaccounted for. Dave Robinson was reported missing. Unfortunately, again, I can't say how the search for Dave went. There's no record of it, none. And with as bare bones as the missing person file is, I wouldn't be surprised if not much was done, if anything at all even. Besides, I'm sure the family out there looking for him. At some point, and I don't even have an exact date for this, it's only noted as sometime after his disappearance, Dave's car was spotted in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. Dearborn Heights is a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. It's literally just outside Detroit. It's considered part of the greater Detroit area. Dave's car was pulled over, but authorities soon learned that the man driving was not Dave. This man was arrested and the car was impounded. There are many things unclear about this situation, and I do have several questions. What was the exact date this happened? Who was this man that was arrested? What was he arrested for exactly? And was anyone aware of any connection that this man had to Dave? And how did this man claim to be in possession of Dave's car? What was his reason for driving Dave's car? Was there any evidence uncovered in the car? Was it even checked forensically for evidence? As of right now, I have none of those answers, and I can't shed much more light on any of that. And there have been no published updates on Dave's missing person case either. What is interesting is in 2018, an online sleuth posted a very interesting post on Reddit. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, there is a large group of online sleuths who dig through John Doe's and Jane Doe cases across the country, across the world even, and see if they can be matched up with any open missing person cases. One Redditor found something very interesting. In August of 2010, about 10 months after Dave disappeared, a John Doe was found in a vacant building in Detroit. Not too far, actually, from where Dave was said to be when he was last seen. This John Doe was listed in the system. However, many critical pieces of information in the file were missing, such as race, height, weight, and many other descriptive factors. Descriptions that you'd find in most John Doe cases. However, there were several things about this John Doe that stuck out to this person. First, this John Doe had a scar that matched a scar that Dave was said to have. This John Doe also had a wired jaw from a previous surgery to repair a broken mandible. The timeline fit, the location fit, and these two very specific medical details matched. Could this John Doe be Dave Robinson? This online sleuth brought this to the attention of the investigator on Dave's case, and they said that they would have to exhume the body of the John Doe and do a DNA test. They also said they have a rather lengthy waiting list for this to be done, and Dave's case would be added to the list. However, lack of funds have caused the city of Detroit to have to delay doing these tests. So this John Doe remains on this list for testing. What's also interesting is that these medical records were listed on the John Doe's file, but we don't even know this man's race or ethnicity. Dave Robinson is a black male. Is this John Doe also a black male? How is that not even mentioned in the file? There has been a little push by these online sleuths to get Dave's story out there and hopefully rush this process of DNA testing. Even offers of some people to start GoFundMes or some charity fundraising. This family certainly deserves answers one way or another. And those answers could be laying right there. Detroit, Michigan currently has almost 200 John Doe cases on file. That's a lot of unidentified people for one city. With regards to Dave Robinson, it's really hard to even think about what may have happened here with such little evidence that we do have. Did he encounter foul play somewhere? Was his car stolen? It seems plausible, especially since they found this other man driving his car. If maybe Dave had an accident, how did this other man come in possession of Dave's car? Or did Dave abandon his car and leave on his own accord? With his medical history, could he have had a medical episode causing him to walk away from his car, leading his car to then just randomly be stolen? Since we have such very little information about Dave's personal life, it's hard to lean one way or another. There are very few clues to work with, at least that we know of. Could law enforcement have more information that they are keeping close to the vest? Let's hope so, but somehow I just don't have high hopes. Detroit has notoriously had a higher than average crime rate, specifically when it comes to violent crimes, which is a shame because parts of the city are remarkably beautiful. Detroit is located in southeast Michigan, sits on the banks of Lake Erie to the south side and Lake St. Clair to the east, and just directly to the east is Canada. Detroit is a popular Canadian border crossing spot. So, what do you think could have happened to Dave Robinson? What else can we do to push for answers in his case? Dave is described as a black male, 38 years old when he vanished in 2010. He would today be around 51 years old. He has short black hair and brown eyes. He is estimated to be around 6 foot 1 inches tall and weighed around 210 pounds back in 2010. Dave also has some very distinctive features, such as a permanently clenched right fist and a clubbed right foot. Anyone with any information on the whereabouts of Dave Robinson is asked to contact the Detroit Police Department at 313-596-2300. Thank you all so much for listening to Dave's story today. As short as it may be, his case needs more exposure. Let's hope the future brings some answers for Dave's family and the families of all of those 200 John Does in the city of Detroit. Thank you all so much for being a supporter of our show. Please remember to send any case suggestions my way. You can do so over on the socials or email me anytime. There are so many missing person cases out there, and I want to cover as many as I can this year. Let's work together to spread awareness on all of these unsolved cases. We will be back again very soon with another unsolved missing persons case. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.